Member Rajin Prasad. Bulavanaka.
Bulavanaka, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Chairman, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I want to talk about Part 3 of the bill, Mr. Chairman, and share with the House a number of concerns I have and work my way through to talking about the SOP 437 in my name. This part of the bill really is a sincere attempt, I accept, to really alter the practice around vulnerable children. And so as such, it's to be taken seriously, and as my colleague Jacinda Ardern said, we support this bill, and we support explicitly the kinds of provisions that this section is about. And I want to go through those, Mr. Speaker, and end up by saying that there actually is a critical element missing. Let me say this, Mr. Chairman, that probably for me, as a professional social worker and a practitioner in this field for a long time, this is probably the most serious amendment that I would seek. One that the profession has required for a long time, but one that successive parliaments and successive ministers have not been able to address. And I'm suggesting the time has come to address that. This is the part of the bill, Mr. Chairman, that actually suggests some very, very serious changes. Clause 102 is talking now about taking a holistic approach. These are words that we hear very often, both in the social work field and others as well. But in applied social work and social work practice, this carries a particular meaning. And Clause 102 is actually taking the real sense of holistic. So it's saying that the approach taken in decisions affecting children has to be holistic. That means all of the factors that impact on a vulnerable child must be taken into account. Now, to do that, Mr. Chairman, requires access to a whole lot of knowledge, one that is often missing in the thinking and the practice and the behavior of many who use terms like a holistic approach. Because the whole library is written about a holistic approach in social work practice. Very little of that, Mr. Chairman, translates into those who tell us that they are practicing using a holistic approach, because it just simply does not happen. So these are critical tests about what is holistic, what are its components, how do theoretical ideas, research findings dovetail with the ability to do the work, the ability to use your skills to get to the point at which you're able to assess or analyze the particular situation for a vulnerable child. So that's a particular one. So that in order for that clause to be satisfied requires a particular kind of practitioner, one that currently we have no guarantee that is regularly available, not just in the state sector, but certainly in the voluntary sector as well. There's another clause, 104, that actually requires a social worker to be satisfied when a person who has been found guilty of abusing children, when they have subsequent children, that has to be carefully assessed to the satisfaction of a social worker, says Clause 104. Now, what kind of social worker the Act is silent on, the amendment is silent on. And so it could be anybody. Now, I think this Parliament ought to seek guarantees that the social worker who is to be satisfied that a parent who has a subsequent child will be disabled from having that child must be a person that demonstrates his or her skills and awareness and knowledge and attributes to the satisfaction of some external authority. But here, there is nothing in this particular bill, nor in the current policies surrounding social work in New Zealand that actually will give us that guarantee. So the assessment of of parents of subsequent children is a very serious holistic assessment. And the person or the group of people doing that, Mr. Chairman,
The Honourable Member,
thank you,
Dr. Rajin
must
Prasad.
be able to demonstrate a particular set of attributes. The clause 110, I say to the Minister in the chair, and in the end I would like the Minister to respond to my SOP, the change it actually requires, or recommends. Because if there are strong reasons as to why the Minister is not going down that track, then I think this House ought to be given that explanation. The family group conferences also are being redeveloped in section 110 to develop plans and plans that will list the kind of changes an individual or a family would have to go through to satisfy that the vulnerability around a child is no longer an issue. So in order to do that, it's so far the practice more often than not is to bring a group of people together who then out of their own experiences suggest the kind of changes that a family would need to require. And often that is not even vetted by those who have expertise through training and professionalism to do this. And yet this, to meet this particular requirement, Mr. Chairman, and through you to the Minister, requires very skilled interventions, and yet we are not guaranteed that. And the same applies to courts requiring a report from a social worker before making certain orders of the type that that Jacinda was talking about earlier. Now, what kind of social worker, what kind of report, and what are the attributes of that social worker? So what my SOP says, Mr. Chairman, is that social workers will, within a 5-year period, will be required to be registered. Now, 5 years is enough time, and in fact, it's too long. The Social Work Registration Board tells me, and the training institutions tell me, it can be done in far shorter a time to get social workers professionally trained and registered. Now, this SOP says that let's start that process. I ask the Minister to be bold and accept that, because it simply is saying in 5 years' time this will happen, and the process can start. We do have the training institutions, there are many, but they are very variable. What they produce is very variable. Some good, some bad, some indifferent. There are many others who are not, because if we look even at the figures within Child, Youth and Family, of the 1,337 total staff, 856 are registered, and of those, 228 are supervisors. So that means there are still a significant number of frontline social workers who are untrained. And so here is a risk. This bill requires to satisfy the provisions of Part 3 requires well-trained social workers who are held to a particular standard. The registration holds them to that standard, and we can improve on that as well. And this SOP does that. And I really urge the Minister to think about that and to accept it, and I hope her party will support this. I know this has been to Cabinet and put aside. The white paper, the Vulnerable Children Programme, was supposed to be addressing all of this, but it isn't. The kind of requirements that are contained in Part 3 are serious, and they require a much higher level of skill than that currently is guaranteed across the board. So if there are reasons, Minister, if I can ask you to explain what those reasons are as to why the time has not come, why it is not a time to require social workers to be registered. So that SOP is designed with some thought. These are comments that I've made elsewhere. These are comments that others have made. These are requirements that the profession has. And I think the Parliament now should move in that with some urgency. And the time frame is there. 5 years is plenty of time to develop our courses, to take our social workers through to a level of provision. And I think even those who are within Child, Youth and Family, currently untrained and not registered, but doing very, very serious work, will get to meet these standards far more quickly. In the past, Child, Youth and Family has fought against these kind of standards, and they will not get themselves there. It has to be this Parliament that requires them to get to that point. And if that happens, Mr. Chairman, then I think there is a good chance that the higher requirement that of Part 3 of this bill and the interest of vulnerable children might be satisfied. And I really would like to hear the Minister on those particular concerns that I've raised and on this particular SOP, and what are the reasons for not supporting these kinds of provisions. And I trust, Mr. Chairman, I got your hand in the button. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I call the Honourable Member Potu Williams. Kia ora.
Mai taki, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much.